Oh, gosh, right now I can't see wanting to stop because I'm afraid when I...
Country music built legends with guitars and voices, but fame never promised protection. Behind the bright lights and sold-out shows, something darker waited. Success arrived loud, but loss came quietly. 18 stars rose to the top, then watched everything disappear. What destroys a career after the applause fades? Can talent alone save anyone? These are 18 old country music stars who lost everything. Number 18, Spade Cooley. Spade. Cooley once had everything a country star could dream of. At his peak, he was not just famous, he was powerful. He sold records in huge numbers, filled large venues, and had his own television show at a time when television meant national control. Money came in from every direction. Sponsorships, appearances, music, and media deals made him one of the wealthiest figures in country and Western entertainment. Then, a serious criminal conviction destroyed his public image and erased his career overnight. Radio stations stopped playing his music. Television canceled him immediately. Promoters refused to book him. The industry closed its doors completely. Income vanished, but expenses did not. Legal costs drained his savings fast. Properties were lost. Assets were sold off just to survive. When he eventually returned to public life, the world had moved on. His name no longer opened doors. His past followed him everywhere. There was no comeback tour, no redemption album, no second chance. The man who once controlled an empire could no longer support himself through music. By the time Spade Cooley passed away, the fortune that once defined him was gone. His fall remains one of the most extreme in country music history. He did not slowly fade, he collapsed. His story shows how fast power can disappear and how unforgiving fame becomes when the spotlight turns cold. Number 17, Johnny Paycheck. Johnny Paycheck rose from hardship to massive success. His songs became anthems, and his rebellious image made him unforgettable. At his peak, he earned large sums from touring, record sales, and radio play. For a time, money was not a problem at all. Fame followed him everywhere, but his success came with chaos. Addiction and reckless behavior followed him through his career. Money was spent as fast as it arrived. He ignored taxes, missed payments, and trusted the wrong people. Government seizures took what was left. Legal trouble led to prison time, cutting off his ability to earn at all. Each time Johnny tried to rebuild, another problem appeared. Tours were canceled, deals collapsed, labels became cautious. Fans still loved him, but the industry no longer trusted him. Bankruptcy followed bankruptcy. The fortune he once held turned into debt and regret. By the end of his life, Johnny Paycheck had almost nothing left financially. His songs lived on, but his money did not. His downfall was not caused by lack of talent or opportunity. It was destroyed from within. His story is one of the clearest examples of how fame without control leads to total financial ruin. Number 16, Hank Williams. Hank Williams helped build country music itself. His songs shaped the genre and influenced generations. He was famous across the nation and constantly in demand. To the public, he looked successful and wealthy, but the truth was very different. Hank signed contracts that paid him little, while others made fortunes from his work. He toured constantly while sick, injured, and exhausted. Medical costs drained his income. Addiction problems made it hard to perform regularly, which meant lost money and canceled shows. Despite creating songs that earned enormous profits, Hank rarely saw that money himself. Managers and labels controlled most of it. He had no long-term financial protection and no chance to slow down. His health worsened and his finances never stabilized. When Hank Williams passed away young, he did not leave behind the wealth people expected. His music made millions after his death, but he never lived to benefit from it. His story is one of the greatest financial injustices in music history. The world gained a legend, but the man himself was left unprotected and unpaid. Number 15, George Jones. George Jones was one of the biggest names country music ever produced. His voice, his hits, and his influence made him a legend while he was still alive. At his peak, he earned enormous sums from records and touring. For years, money flowed freely, but addiction slowly took control of his life. Shows were missed, tours collapsed, contracts were broken. Each failure cost money and damaged trust. Managers tried to help, but the problems continued. Huge amounts of income were lost through cancellations and poor decisions. Even when he attempted recovery, the damage was already deep. Debt followed him. Assets were sold. The fortune he once had was mostly gone. Although he later found stability, it came too late to fully recover what was lost. George Jones did not die poor, but he lost most of what he once had. His fall shows how even the most successful careers can be undone when personal struggles take control of financial decisions. Number 14. Tammy Wynette. Tammy Wynette was one of the most successful female artists in country music history. Her songs dominated the charts, and her voice became iconic. Fame brought money, but control over that money was limited. Serious medical problems followed her for years. Treatments were expensive and constant. At the same time, disputes with management and business partners reduced her earnings. Ownership of her work became unclear, and income slipped away. Despite her fame, financial stress followed her into later life. Legal issues and medical costs strained what she earned. The woman known as the First Lady of country music never enjoyed the financial security her success should have guaranteed. Her story shows that fame does not always mean protection. Even queens can lose control of their crowns. Number 13. Marty Robbins. Marty Robbins was a massive success. He sold millions of records and won major awards. His music reached audiences across the world. Money came easily for many years, but Marty developed an expensive obsession with car racing. The costs were enormous. Racing teams, vehicles, repairs, and travel drained his income quickly. While music paid well, racing consumed everything. Debts grew as spending increased. Even continuous success in music could not keep up. By the end of his life, much of his fortune was gone, lost to a passion that gave him excitement, but no financial return. Marty Robbins remains a legend, but his wealth did not survive him. His story proves that even success can be undone by unchecked obsession. Number 12. Webb Pierce. Webb Pierce once stood at the very top of country music. During his peak years, his records sold in massive numbers, and his songs dominated radio stations across the country. He earned more money than most of his peers and lived a life that showed it clearly. He owned large homes, expensive cars, and surrounded himself with symbols of success. In an era when most country singers lived modestly, Webb Pierce lived big. At that time, it seemed impossible that he could ever lose everything. But success in music depends on staying present. Webb Pierce slowly stepped away from the spotlight. He believed his past hits would protect his future. As new artists entered the scene, radio attention shifted. Record sales slowed. Royalties continued, but they were not enough to support the lifestyle he had built during his peak years. At the same time, Webb Pierce invested heavily outside of music. Many of these investments failed. Money that once came easily now disappeared quietly. Expenses remained high, but income no longer matched them. Properties were sold off. The wealth that once defined his identity began to shrink year by year. The country music industry moved forward without waiting. Fans changed, trends shifted. His name still carried respect, but respect did not pay bills. By the later years of his life, Webb Pierce was no longer wealthy. He was not completely forgotten, but he was no longer financially secure. His story shows how dangerous it can be to believe success will last forever. Number 11. Lefty Frizzell. Lefty Frizzell changed country music forever. His smooth phrasing and emotional delivery created a new style that countless singers later copied. He had hit records, national fame, and deep respect from the industry. Many artists who followed became rich using the style he created, but Lefty Frizzell never protected himself financially. From early in his career, he made poor money decisions. He trusted the wrong people and failed to plan for the future. Lawsuits drained his earnings. Unpaid taxes piled up. Money left his hands faster than it entered. As time passed, his popularity declined. New sounds replaced the old ones. Touring became harder as health problems increased. Fewer shows meant less income. While his influence remained strong, his financial position grew weaker. By the end of his life, Lefty Frizzell was no longer living like a star. He depended heavily on others for support. The man whose voice shaped modern country music did not have the financial security his legacy deserved. His songs lived on, but his money did not. Lefty Frizzell's story is one of the clearest examples of how influence does not equal protection. He gave the genre its future, but the industry did not give him safety in return. He had everything that mattered creatively, yet lost nearly everything financially. Number 10. Keith Whitley. Keith Whitley was seen as one of the most promising voices country music had ever produced. His singing was emotional and honest, and it connected deeply with listeners. As his career grew, hit songs pushed him closer to the highest level of success. Industry insiders believed he would become one of the biggest stars of his generation. From the outside, it looked like wealth and security were just ahead, but financial stability takes time, and Keith Whitley never had enough of it. His career was still young. While his songs were successful, he had not yet built long-term savings or strong ownership over his work. Touring and recording brought income, but it had not reached a point where it could protect him for the future. Personal struggles slowed his progress. Missed opportunities reduced earnings. Some shows did not happen. Momentum weakened just as it should have been strongest. The industry remained interested, but uncertainty made everything fragile. Without consistency, income stopped growing. When Keith Whitley passed away, the future that promised security disappeared with him. The money connected to his name arrived later, not during his life. His music became even more valuable after his death, but he never experienced that success himself. His family and estate benefited more than he ever did. Keith Whitley did not lose a massive fortune. He lost the chance to ever build one. His story is one of unrealized security rather than reckless loss. He had fame, respect, and momentum, but time ran out before any of it could turn into lasting financial safety. His chapter reminds us that success without time is still unfinished, and unfinished success offers no protection at all. Number 9. Faron Young. Faron Young built one of the strongest careers in 1950s country music, scoring major hits early and keeping a steady flow of records that sold well for years. Radio loved him, fans knew his name everywhere, and he toured constantly, earning good money during his peak years. Young was called the singing sheriff. His voice had power, and his stage presence pulled crowds. He ran his own music publishing company and tried to control more of his career than most artists did back then. For a while it worked, bringing him income from records, touring, and publishing rights. He appeared on television, invested in real estate, and on paper, he looked successful. But success in country music during that era did not protect anyone long term. Young's mental health began to decline in the 1980s. Depression took hold and never let go. His ability to perform weakened, touring income dropped, and record sales faded as newer artists took over radio. The publishing company did not generate enough to replace what he lost from performing. Financial pressure built slowly, but never stopped. Medical bills increased, and his emotional state worsened. The industry moved on without him. Young had been famous for decades, but that fame did not translate into financial security when he needed it most. In 1996, Faron Young took his own life at 64 years old. The man who had dominated country radio for years ended his life alone and struggling. His career had been long, and his name had been big, but when the spotlight faded, there was no safety net waiting. Success had been loud, the decline was quiet, and in the end, neither fame nor early fortune was enough to save him. Number 8. Gary Stewart. Gary Stewart represented the rough edge of 1970s country music, bringing a raw honky-tonk sound that connected with working-class audiences immediately. His voice carried emotion that felt real, not polished, and his songs about drinking, heartbreak, and hard living matched the outlaw era perfectly. He signed with RCA Records and released a string of hits that made him a legitimate star during the mid-70s. Stewart's biggest success came with songs like She's Actin' Single and Out of Hand, which climbed the charts and earned him serious radio play. He toured heavily, filled venues, and built a loyal fan base that saw him as authentic. For several years, the money flowed in, royalties arrived, and his career seemed stable enough to last. But addiction controlled more of his life than anyone outside his circle understood. Alcohol and hard substances became constants, not occasional problems, and they drained his income as fast as it came in. Touring became harder, performances grew unpredictable, and record labels lost interest. By the 1980s, his career had stalled completely. Hits stopped coming, and the industry moved on without him. Financial problems became severe in his later years. Medical bills piled up, and the royalties that once supported him had mostly dried up. Stewart struggled to find work. struggled to stay clean, and struggled to rebuild what addiction had destroyed. The outlaw image that made him famous came with a real price, one that he paid long after the spotlight moved away. In 2003, Gary Stewart passed away by suicide at 68 years old, just months after his wife passed away. The man who once filled honky-tonks and dominated jukeboxes ended his life broke and alone, proving that the outlaw life celebrated in songs often led to tragedy in real life. Number 7. Stonewall Jackson. Stonewall Jackson came out of rural Georgia with a voice that fit traditional country music perfectly, and by the late 1950s, he had become one of the most reliable hitmakers in Nashville. His breakout song, Life to Go, reached number 1 in 1959, and he followed it with a string of chart successes that kept him on radio and touring circuits for years. Songs like Waterloo's and Beat J the DJ became country standards. His name appeared on every major show, and for a solid decade, he was considered one of the genre's dependable stars. Jackson's success came from doing exactly what Nashville wanted, delivering clean traditional country with strong melodies and relatable lyrics. He signed with major labels, worked with top producers, and his records sold consistently. Touring kept him busy, and the money seemed steady enough to build a career on. He had everything a country artist needed to sustain long-term success in that era. But Jackson made decisions that put him at odds with the industry machine, and once that happened, his career began to crumble in ways he could not reverse. Legal battles emerged over contracts, royalties, and ownership rights, disputes that dragged on and cost him both money and industry relationships. Nashville was a tight circle, and fleeing the system meant getting frozen out. Radio play dried up, booking agents stopped calling, and record labels moved on to artists who caused less trouble. The blacklisting was not official, but it was real, and it destroyed his income almost overnight. Jackson kept trying to perform and record, but without industry support, his career had no foundation. The hits stopped coming, the tours ended, and the royalties he thought he owned became tangled in legal disputes that ate up whatever money remained. By the time the battles ended, Jackson had lost most of what he built. His name still carried weight among older fans, but the industry had erased him from its active roster. He spent his later years largely forgotten by the mainstream, performing occasional small shows, but never regaining the career or income he once had. Fighting the system had cost him everything, and Nashville made sure he served as a warning to anyone else who thought about doing the same. Number 6. Mel Street. Mel Street arrived in country music during the early 1970s with a traditional sound that connected with audiences looking for something genuine. And his first hit, Borrowed Angel in 1972, put him on the map immediately. He followed it with songs like Lovin' on Backstreets and If I Had a Cheating Heart, tracks that climbed the charts and earned him national recognition. For several years, Street had everything a country artist needed: radio play, touring offers, and a growing fan base that believed in his music. Street's voice carried the kind of honesty that made him stand out even in a crowded field, and his songs about heartbreak and hard choices felt real to working people across the country. He signed with major labels, appeared on television programs, and his albums sold well enough to keep his career moving forward. The money was not massive, but it was steady, and for a while, it seemed like he had built something that could last. But the country music industry in the 1970s was brutal to artists who could not maintain momentum, and Street's chart success began to fade by the mid-70s. Newer artists took over radio, his label support weakened, and touring income dropped as bookers focused on bigger names. Financial pressure started building, medical issues emerged, and the career that had felt stable just a few years earlier began falling apart. Street had no backup plan, no major investments, and no publishing empire to fall back on when record sales slowed. The royalties that once arrived regularly became smaller and less frequent, and the industry offered no safety net for artists whose commercial peak had passed. Depression took hold as his financial situation worsened, and the stress of trying to stay relevant while dealing with mounting bills became overwhelming. In 1978, Mel Street passed away by suicide at 45 years old, just 6 years after his first major hit. His story revealed how quickly success could disappear in country music, and how fame without financial protection left artists completely vulnerable when the spotlight shifted away. Number 5. Ernest Tubb. Ernest Tubb was one of the true pioneers of country music. helping shape the entire sound of the genre in the 1940s and 50s with his distinctive honky-tonk style. He scored his first major hit with Walking the Floor Over You in 1941, and that song launched a career that would span decades. Tubb became a fixture on the Grand Ole Opry, opened his own record shop in Nashville that became legendary, and influenced countless artists who came after him. For years, he was one of the biggest names in country music. His contribution to the industry went beyond just his own records. He helped establish Nashville as the center of country music and mentored younger artists trying to break through. Tubb toured relentlessly, his bus crisscrossing the country year after year, and his live shows packed venues everywhere. The money flowed in during his peak years, and his status as a founding father of modern country seemed unshakable. But the music industry never stops moving, and by the 1960s and 70s, the sound that made Tubb famous had started feeling dated to younger audiences. Rock and roll changed everything. Then the Nashville sound brought orchestration and polish that pushed traditional honky-tonk further to the margins. New stars emerged with different styles, radio shifted its focus, and suddenly the pioneer who had built the foundation found himself being left behind. Tubb kept touring and recording, but his earnings shrank steadily as his relevance faded. Record sales dropped, his bookings moved to smaller venues, and the royalties from his classic hits were not structured to provide long-term security. Medical problems emerged in his later years, expenses increased, and the financial cushion he thought he had built proved insufficient. Ernest Tubb passed away in 1984 at 70 years old, still respected as a legend, but financially diminished from his peak. The man who helped create country music as a commercial force ended his life without the wealth his contributions deserved, proving that even pioneers can be forgotten when the industry moves forward without them. Number 4. Ferlin Husky. Ferlin Husky possessed one of the smoothest voices in country music and used it to score major hits throughout the 1950s and 60s, starting with A Dear John Letter in 1953 and continuing with classics like Gone and Wings of a Dove. His records sold extremely well. His name appeared on every major chart, and for years he was one of country music's most bankable stars. But Husky signed contracts during an era when artists had almost no leverage and labels controlled everything, and those deals cost him millions over the course of his career. The royalty structures were designed to benefit everyone except the performer. Publishing rights were signed away for pennies, and even his biggest hits generated far less income for him than they should have. Poor financial advice made things worse. Investments failed, and money that should have been saved disappeared into bad deals. By the time Husky understood how badly he had been exploited, it was too late to recover what he lost. Lawyers and accountants had already taken their cuts, and the contracts he signed decades earlier still controlled his earnings. Royalties that should have supported him for life were slipping away to people who had nothing to do with creating the music. Ferlin Husky passed away in 2011 at 85 years old, having outlived most of his contemporaries but never recovering the wealth his talent deserved. Number 3. Joe South. Joe South wrote songs that became massive hits for other artists and shaped the sound of late 1960s and early 70s music, crafting tracks like Games People Play and Rose Garden that dominated radio and won awards. He was not just a songwriter, but also a talented guitarist and producer who worked with major artists across multiple genres. His songwriting brought him recognition, Grammy Awards, and what should have been substantial long-term income from royalties. But songwriting royalties in that era were complicated, filled with disputes over ownership percentages, publishing rights, and mechanical licenses that most artists did not fully understand. South found himself in legal battles over who owned what, which songs generated which payments, and how much he was actually owed. The disputes dragged on for years, legal fees mounted, and the income that should have been flowing to him became tangled in contracts and court cases. As the battles continued, South's ability to write new material declined. The stress and frustration drained his creativity, and opportunities dried up. The industry that had celebrated his work moved on, while he fought to collect what he was owed. By the time some disputes were resolved, the money had already been divided among lawyers, publishers, and labels. Joe South passed away in 2012 at 72 years old, having written songs that made fortunes for others, but never fully collecting what his work deserved. His story showed how even successful songwriters could be destroyed by royalty disputes, and how writing the hits meant nothing if you could not control who got paid. Number 2. Tom T. Hall. Tom T. Hall built one of the most respected careers in country music as both a performer and songwriter, earning the nickname the Storyteller for his detailed narrative songs that connected with audiences throughout the 1970s. Hall seemed to have figured out the business side better than most, controlling more of his publishing and building what looked like long-term financial stability. For years, Hall lived comfortably from his royalties, touring income, and publishing revenue, and he appeared to be one of the few country artists who would not face financial disaster. He wrote books, invested carefully, and maintained control over his catalog in ways that should have protected him for life. The foundation seems solid. When rights disputes emerge, Hall found himself fighting over ownership and royalty percentages as the music industry changed and old contracts were challenged. Publishing companies merged, catalogs were sold, and suddenly the control he thought he had was not as secure as it seemed. Legal battles required expensive lawyers, negotiations dragged on, and income that once felt guaranteed became uncertain. The reduced income hit hardest in his later years when medical expenses increased and he could no longer tour or write new material to replace what he lost. Tom T. Hall passed away in 2021 at 85 years old, still respected as one of country music's greatest storytellers, but with far less wealth than his success suggested he should have accumulated. His decline was quieter than others, but it proved that even careful planning and industry knowledge could not fully protect artists when the system was designed to take more than it gave. Number 1. David Stringbean Akeman. David Stringbean Akeman became a beloved figure in country music and comedy through his decades on the Grand Ole Opry and his regular appearances on the television show Hee Haw, where millions of viewers knew him for his tall, lanky appearance, old-fashioned banjo playing, and cornball humor. He was a fixture in country entertainment from the 1940s through the early 70s, performing constantly and earning steady income from his television work, Opry appearances, and touring. He also came from a generation that distrusted banks and kept cash at home, a decision that would have tragic consequences. Despite decades of performing, Stringbean had accumulated relatively little, and what he did save was kept in his house rather than invested or protected. In 1973, David Stringbean Akeman and his wife were unalived in their home during a robbery, lives taken by thieves who had heard rumors about cash hidden on the property. He was 58 years old. The tragedy revealed how little he actually had despite his fame. The robbery netted almost nothing, and his estate showed that decades of national television exposure had not translated into real wealth. Not all fame paid equally, and Stringbean's death exposed how little the industry valued the performers who built its foundation. The pattern behind every collapse reveals the same truth. The country music industry rewarded sound but never safety, fame but never protection. These 18 stories span generations but share identical endings: talent celebrated, money taken, legacies reduced to cautionary tales. These stories still matter because the pattern continues today, different names facing the same design destruction.